Parshas Emor. So the Sedra begins with the Isser Tuma for Kahanim, talmidei, and exceptions for Mishpacha. Psukim delineate that. What's the pshat? So pshat is that Kohen is also beduma, right? That's a simple way to understand it. But the Sforno says more than that. It says the Sforno, Atam shel yitam hakohen kim lekrovavu. The reason that a kohen can only betam for his krovim, ki omna kohen hu ba'al ba'amav lahavin laharos. He has a position of leading the nation in Torah. Ki sivsei kohen yishmu das v'torah v'akshem bipihu. That's the kohen's position. For roy leish kazeh linug b'nesiyas ki heichad l'shtam milei. So now, if he's in the position to lead Klal Yisrael in terms of Torah, so now he has to be listened to. There has to be a cover for him to listen to him. And therefore it's not proper for him to be mechala, to profane this position of kedusha, to go ahead and be mechabed the mesim. In other words, because of his position of leadership in Torah, therefore that mitigates the fact that he can go ahead and lower himself, so to speak, to be mechabed for mesim. Ka'amru zal, like Chazal say, where it says in Zanhed, "Shekvura v'hesped lemeis heim yikra d'shichvi." The gvura and the hesped of a mace is the honor for the dead person. So, in other words, what he's doing is he's foregoing his position of kavod, of leading Klal Yisrael in Torah, to go ahead and be mechabed another person. Omnim the krovim hitu l'tamei ki kvodim hu k'vaydo. But what's pshat krovim? Why krovim mutter? Krovim are mutter because the emes is that's his kavod. Because Mibalta related to him, and he's been mechabed them, so he's really been mechabed him, so it goes back on cover. It flips back on himself. So the sort of thing Yisoid. Yisoid is that the cover of the kohen is not just the pshat that he's the fact that the kohen cannot be tamei meis is not just because he's a kohen and because he works in the base of Mikdash, and therefore the tumah would be a antithesis to the work in the base of Mikdash. He's a level of kedusha. It's that he has a position of leadership in Torah. And therefore, his kavod is paramount, so that people will listen to him. If he's going to go ahead and be mechabed mesim, even though it's a grace of mitzvah, then the Sforno is not minimizing the importance of the mitzvah. You see, meis mitzvah is daich everything, right? But for him to go ahead and when it's not a meis mitzvah, to go ahead and be involved in mesim, that's a gerua for his kavod, and therefore he needs. Now, what's the segue over here? Segue is obviously that we're in the days before Shavuos and Matan Torah. We're roughly a month before right now. So we have to see the Gemara in Yevamos and Daf Samech Beis Amud Aleph. Very famous Gemara. The Gemara says, Shnayim Eser Elef Zugim Talmidim Hayil Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Akiva had 12,000 pairs of Talmidim Begavas At Tifris. The Kulam Mesav Perach Echad. They all died in one tkufa, one parak. Because they're not kovid zel lezeh. The Torah was silent, the world was silent with Torah until he went south. Rabbi Meir, Rabbi Huda, Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Shimon, Rabbi Elazar ben Shemua. Behem, Hamidu Torah ba'osu shar. They're the ones who retained the Masorah of Torah. And then the Gemara adds on, Tonu kulam meisei Pesach ad atzeres. The Zman they all were nifter was mi Pesach ad atzeres. So the question is, why is that so important? I mean, obviously Zman, right? So why is it so important they were nifter from Pesach ad atzeres? It's telling us another historical fact, but it seems to be germane. It seems to be nogeya, the Misa itself. So Rav Aaron Zatzal has a shtickle, and he deals with this question. Possibly this is a pshat. He was the Torah Shabbat the Talmid of Haim shall yodem ha'isa misor Shabbat l'dor. So therefore, if he's the Torah Shabbat, his Talmidim are who are going to be Moisei Torah Shabbat l'dor. Umemela tzrichen liyos etzlom betachlis hashleimus shel memches dvorim shatar niktas behem. And therefore, his Talmidim had to be perfected in the memches dvarim, like the Mishnah delineates in Avos, al memches dvarim tar shtar niktas behem. The shebachos is zeh Because if there's going to be any chasaron in their memches dvarim, hinechase be'etzem kniyas Torah. Therefore, their kniyas Torah. In other words, the memches dvarim are not just a way to be kind of Torah, but to the degree that Rachmana litzlan that a person is chaser in any one of those memches dvarim, then his kinyan of Torah is lessened. To that degree, it's not kind of Torah. Ke'enim b'kabbalah, ke'enim b'kabbalah v'chol Torah v'kedushasa. Why? I can still learn Torah, can still learn Shas, still write Svarim, still give Shirim, be a Rosh Shiva. But to that degree, his Torah doesn't have the Tahara and the Kedusha of Torah, and therefore felt he doesn't have the Shlemus of Torah. Ulachem. Mavada diktu being tzaddikim chutasara, aside from the fact that these tzaddikim, because their Rebbeinu Shalom is medakti b'chutasara, and therefore else they themselves, their own avera not being covered as elazeh, they're roy la'oinish. Aside from that, hayibazeh yin dekim dechosel lehem b'dibul chaverim. Since one of the memches dvarim is dibul chaverim, that there's people in chaverim, there's a kesher to yaner to another person, and since they were chaser in that because they were not covered as elazeh, ein tarasim betachlis haroy. Therefore, the Torah was not tachlis haroy. It wasn't what it could have been. And therefore, they were not roy to be the bali misur. In other words, this was not just a einish for they themselves, whatever the pshat no whatever that means. It wasn't just an einish for their avera, but they're no longer in a position to be meiser Torah because their Torah is chaser. Because the Torah was about tarasa. That's the obligation. That's the chiyuv. Anyone who was in meiser Torah, his Torah itself has to be on such a darga that he's right to be meiser Torah. And that's why they couldn't continue. Now, so says Rabbi Aaron, that's why it's dafka this man they were nifter. Why? Because either days we're preparing for Matan Torah. The Rishon explain the whole Yin Sphere is the Hachana for Torah. The chinuch goes. Remember, spends. If you look in the chinuch and Shoshe Mitzvah, he's not marich 2, 3, 5 lines. This is like 3 paragraphs. If you take a look at this mitzvah, Shin Vav in the chinuch, it's mamish. He goes after this. For hayamonim kol yom v'yom ked, right? So therefore, we're counting each day as the countdown. So therefore, it comes out like this. It comes out that talmidei Rabbi Akiva, they were nifting this man because they were the Bali Mesorah. And because their Torah wasn't shlema, because they were chassid, and one of the memchas dvarim, the chibuk bechaverim, dibuk chaverim, so maybe they're not right to be a bali mesorah. So if this is the zman we're being meichen for Torah, so then the hashgacha was that this man, the Kodesh Baruch Hu, is being ma'arra, so to speak. That this man, because they were felt on achon of the Torah, this is a service for our achonis of Torah. This should go ahead and boomerang back on us to realize what achonis of Torah really means. Now, this idea that they were not called Elizeh, and Memela didn't have the correct shaykhs with each other, in each other's Torah goes even deeper than that. Says the Eitz Yosef. It says in the Medrash, the reason they were nifter, they had a tzara sign for each other. Klema. Says the Eitz Yosef, it was a sin that they had for each other. That sin, how did it express itself? They didn't want to mahani each other in the limud. The camp perishalo no good cover zelis. What does it mean? Kol echad behem al covered Torah shachavero. They cover the Torah because in cover the Torah, and therefore, if the sinner that they had was an area of Torah, so mamela it was felt in cover the Torah itself. In other words, it wasn't just in their covered for each other's Torah. The fact that they had this feeling about each other, the fact that no cover zez, I mean their own cover the Torah was chaser. I mean, they themselves, their Torah wasn't roy itself. Which is very interesting. If you think about the word kavod, it comes from the word, the shurish of the word is kabed. What does kabed mean? Kabed, like something is heavy, something is substantial. What's pshat in kavod? Kavod is not the pshat that I stand up for you to give you honor. Kavod is the pshat, I recognize your value and I react to it. You stand up for a Talmid Chacham, you're recognizing the erech and the value of a Talmid Chacham, and you're reacting to that. So, you stand up, and not just because you want to, show him that he's important to you. So, to the degree that you don't see that, To the degree that you don't have that coveted Torah, so mainly you're not going to have coveted Torah. Whether you express it in some chitzoni and ma'isa, you stand up for him, you hold the door for him, you address him, harava gain. That's not the point. The point is to the degree that you recognize Torah, what Torah really is, and you recognize that he has Torah, so mainly that's where the cover comes from. We have a Gemara in Shabbos. Gemara in Shabbos, Kuf Ham says like this. Anyone who is misata behesper shachochem, that he's lazy in the hesped of a talmid chacham, he's roy lekover b'chayev. He's roy to go to his kfur in his life. In other words, he's roy to die. Because the pasuk says in Yeshua, v'yikra also es Yoshua b'sofan alargash b'lamei. The Gemara says shegorish alein har lehargon. They were right to die. Why should they spiru karoi? They didn't give a proper hesped. That's one member. Then he wants masvat talmid chacham. He's masvat b'hespedo. He's roy lekover b'chayev. Says the Gemara weiter. Reb Chia bar Abba, Reb Yochanan. Kol misata b'hespedo shachacham einam marach yomim. Rachmana son, he won't have a riches yomim. Mida keneged mida. What's mida keneged mida? Why is it mida keneged mida that he won't be roy to have long years? So Rashi mida keneged mida. The fact that he didn't have a proper avelus, and the fact that talmid chacham's life was cut short, so the Rebbeinu Shalom is not chas on his life. The fact that he wasn't chas on the fact that the talmid chacham died, it's whatever point, so he's not chas on his own life. What does that mean? Says Rav Dessler. When a person gets an einish rachmana litzlan, is for one purpose. To teach him. To teach him what? To get a mida connected mida who? Because the whole point of the einish is to show a person where he's weak. So therefore the einish Bershom gives mida connected mida as being it's a rebbe. It's to teach you what you need to change. They should come to proper hakara. The galas hachasorim. And therefore he can understand better what his lacking was that brought the chet. How could a person chas v'sholem be chaser in the hesped of a talmid chacham? Because the pshadi doesn't have a proper appreciation for that chacham in his chacham. In other words, again, it's a reaction. To the degree that I see what a talmid chacham is, that's what I'm going to react. If he's nifter, so the hesped's going to be as a hesped. Why? Because this was lost. I understand it was lost. A person loses all his money, he cries. There's only he's going to do now. So a person loses as that Torah in the world, how can he react? Elamai, he doesn't recognize it. It's more than he just doesn't recognize the value of Torah. He doesn't recognize the Torah as his life. He doesn't understand. It's not the pshat, Torah is gewaldig. The pshat is, there's no life without Torah. He gashmi is greater. Because he thinks being alive means breathing. Your heart's beating, you're eating, you're walking, you're doing all the things you need to do to live a life. And that's what he thinks life is. So therefore, if Torah is defined by Gashmi, it's defined by how I go ahead and go through the world and go through my day. So, in a Chanami, I don't understand what it means to lose the Chacham. Therefore, Baruch Hashem shows him what life is. Life is the Torah. Life is that talmid chacham. And therefore, because of this chesaron, the Baruch Hashem takes his life. In other words, what he's saying is, I don't know what life is. So the Baruch Hashem says, you don't know what life is? So why do you need to live? What's the point? You know, like this anyway. You don't appreciate it. I was once heard a shir. Someone was talking to Bali Tshuva. Someone asked him, Rabbi, what if I could prove to you the Torah isn't true? What would you do? Prove it to you, beyond a shadow of a doubt. What would you do? So he was doing some construction, I guess, outside, like not far from he was giving the shir. He says, you see that apartment building over there, all the stories up? He said, I would climb up to the top and jump. Commit suicide. Rabbi, commit suicide? He said, yeah, what's the point? Well, it's like another hamburger? Go another car? Have another pleasure? There's no point. Torah's life. So there's no Torah, there's no life. That's the word. The word is Torah's life. And therefore, what we have to understand is, in these days, is we're making meich. Just like the Svarah said, that the whole covet of the whole inyan of the Kain not be metamis because he can't reduce his covet because he's in a position where the covet of Torah is paramount, so that he can give over Torah, he can lead the nation. So we're in these days of Achana. We have to find ways to not just learn Torah, but have the proper haruch of Torah. Know what Torah is, so that when Shavuos comes, we're just going out of our minds. I remember Michael Twersky came to Ner Yisrael many years ago, and he was speaking in Shalashidus, and he says to the Olam, he says, I don't understand you guys. He says, I don't understand why no one's getting up in the middle of second Seder and dancing through the aisles between the standards, between the tables there. What are you talking about? He says, I know you're not going to do it. It doesn't pass, right? But why don't you want to do it? Why don't you feel Torah so much that you have to dance? So as Hashem is Borach, this is the Zman of Achona, we should be Zoiche.